It should be live now. I thought it was, but then like just checking it's not. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, perfect.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janicia Hoyle. I am the coordinator for the Next Generation Global Health Security Network. Welcome to our NextGen webinar series. Today, we would like to welcome Ms. Sue Loubster. She is the director of the Global Biorisk Management Institute, where she is working to enhance the e-learning division. She is currently integrating biosafety curricula and new technologies to increase student engagement, enhance learning outcomes, and help create a sustainable culture of biosafety in private and public sector organizations worldwide by removing costs and accessibility obstacles to biosafety training. Sue, thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I just ask if anyone has any questions during the session, can you please use the chat box to submit the questions, and we'll get to the questions at the end of her presentation. So Sue, at this time, thanks for joining us. I'm going to...
Well, first, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share what Global Biorisk Management Institute is doing with you. Today, our plan is to spend some time looking at what e-learning is and explore how e-learning's changed. You know, a lot of people, when they think of online learning or distance learning, have memories of slideshows or video, very much a one-way kind of communication. And I'd like to look at some examples with you that showcase how engaging e-learning can be and how much it's changed over the years, and what a good addition it can be to anybody's sustainable training program. So to start off with, I think everybody understands that training is necessary. There's a number of reasons that are pretty obvious as to why it's important to train your staff. But it can boost an employee's confidence. If they know what they're doing, they can do it well. They don't have to wonder or ask people all the time what they need to be doing. It can improve operational efficiency, and by doing that, obviously, you increase productivity. And if you can check those three boxes, then you'll find that it likely leads to improved safety. You'd have fewer accidents, which would result in cost savings. And so it's important to understand the necessity of training. Also, in a number of instances, it's mandated by law. And not only is training necessary, some people feel that if they've done initial training of staff, then their job is done, they've trained them, it's done. But ongoing training is critical. So you have changes to technology, you get new equipment, or you get new technologies like laser technologies where you have to train your people in those procedures. You have changes in protocols that you need to communicate to everybody. You have responses that need to be developed to new pandemics. And then, of course, you have your recertifications, again, that are required by some organizations. So organizations sometimes think that if they invest in training once, their job's complete. But it's definitely not so. And e-learning can help with a lot of your training issues. So let's just explore a little further what e-learning is. It's instruction that's delivered via computer or mobile device. So it's outside of a traditional classroom. And right now, not only can we deliver to computer and tablet or laptop, we can deliver to a cell phone also. It's trainer independent. And finding trainers, especially in countries outside of America, is a real big issue. So many countries, what you can train often hinges on who you have to offer the training. So if you have a train the trainer program to teach biorisk management, then that's the course that you can offer. and you're dependent on the trainer. You can only offer that course when the trainer is there to lead that course. What happens if the trainer leaves? What happens if there's another course that you want to offer that you don't have an expert in? So e-learning is trainer independent. There's also two kinds of e-learning, synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous, well, actually there's a third which blends the two, but synchronous is when you have a teacher who's online at the same time as her students. So pretty much as I'm talking to you now, I'm here, you there, you can ask questions, we can interact. That could be synchronous e-learning. Asynchronous e-learning has advantages and disadvantages. The one is it's much more flexible, but once they've recorded this video and they show it on YouTube, it becomes an asynchronous learning experience. Somebody can watch it, they can interact with it if they need to, but they can't ask a live question. At GBEMI, what we focus on largely is asynchronous learning. You also have the option of blended learning, where sometimes you're with an instructor and sometimes you're looking at material yourself. I'd like to spend a few minutes just going over some of the benefits of e-learning. And the first one is that it's cost effective. So if you just think of the costs that are associated with face-to-face training that you don't have when you have e-learning, you don't have airfares or accommodations or conference fees. You don't have people having to take time away from work. And in fact, the research, according to the International Data Corporation, shows that you can save between 50 and 70% of costs when you replace instructor-led training with e-learning. You also have an economy of scale that's interesting. If I spend X amount of dollars and I develop a course and I offer it to 100 people, I get a cost per person. But once the course is developed, I can offer it to the next 100 and the next 100 and the next 100 with a very, very minor cost increases. You know, I'd have to increase the number of seats in my learning management system, for example. But I don't have the airfares, the accommodation, the conference fees. So I can scale up on the number of people that I'm training far more effectively with e-learning than what I can with face-to-face learning. You also have the obvious benefits of flexibility. So you can learn anytime, 24/7. You can learn anywhere. And one of the things that has really motivated my company to do this is because it allows high quality material to become accessible to remote areas. People that can't easily reach training, people that don't have access to high quality training can now get it through the flexibility of e-learning. And you have increased opportunities because you have more courses that are available to take. I don't have to depend on a set training calendar, preset training calendar. So, and that will tell me that in 3 months' time, we're doing the course on bio-waste management. I can look at the array of courses that are available, and I can take them whenever I want to. So, more courses available to anybody at any time. And then, of course, you have the convenience of never having to leave home to learn. So, you can learn at your office. You can take 2 or 3 hours a day and do a course at office. But if you want to do it in the evenings, you want to do it weekends, you don't have to leave home to do your e-learning. And e-learning also addresses different kinds of learners. Yeah, it was a hard thing to phrase different kinds of learners, but if you think of the learners that are less than eager to engage in a face-to-face classroom. You know, you get the quieter people who they don't want to ask questions because they're afraid to be wrong. They're shy. They may have language issues. They're concerned about the relevance of their contribution. or the peer pressure to not ask questions. So you get people that sit through a face-to-face course and let things pass them by because they don't have the confidence to engage. E-learning can allow you to bypass that. Another interesting area where e-learning is pretty successful is people who have attention deficit disorders, who can't sit still for long. In a classroom, it can be very distracting to have somebody jump up and sit down and fidget. If they're learning on their own and they need a break, they can just jump up, come back and focus. They can do it in short periods of time. And it's in fact a very effective medium for teaching ADHD learners. E-learning also allows us to differentiate. So there's a couple of things. Participants acquire information at individual rates. Your courses are self-paced. And your content of your courses can be differentiated. In addition, if somebody reaches a section and they say, oh, I really know that, they can go through it quickly. If they reach a section and say, I don't know this, I need to try again or redo it, they can spend as much time as they want to reviewing material, taking and retaking quizzes, till they attain mastery in a really supportive environment. So there's nobody there to judge them. There's nobody there to say, you tried this exercise 4 times before you got it. They can just quietly work through it until they've got the confidence and have mastered any kind of material. E-learning also addresses all your multiple learning styles. So often you'll get a good face-to-face instructor who can incorporate a number of different learning styles into a presentation. But it's much easier to do that on an e-learning platform. So you can have your visual information, like your PowerPoint. You have auditory information, so you have recordings that go with every slide. We have video, you have diagrams, you have maps, so you have your nonverbal information. People can repeat what they hear over and over if they learn best from auditory learning style. And then we have a lot of interactive simulations and games for the tactile and kinesthetic learners. So e-learning works well in all those areas. You can also deliver courses faster. So you have efficient onboarding. If you get new staff, you can train them today. They come in, you sit them down in front of a computer, or you set them a course to do before they even start on their first day. They don't have to wait until a training course becomes available. And your current staff can get on-demand training. They don't have to wait for something. So you can deliver courses much faster than in a face-to-face environment. It's also interesting to notice that with e-learning, learning is more efficient, and participants acquire information 40 to 60% faster with e-learning than they do face-to-face. It's quite interesting. For example, one of the courses we offer is Biosafety cabinets, the care and use of biosafety cabinets. When we do this training face-to-face, it's a half-day course. When we do it online, it's a 2-hour course. There's fewer distractions, so you don't have to say to the people, come in, sign in, take your seat, wait for everybody to be on time, wait for everybody to turn to the right page. You don't have people interrupting with questions. You don't have a tea break where you say we'll start again at 10:15 and you start again at 10:30. So a lot of those distractions are gone, and the learning is really focused. You find the same thing with homeschool children. So homeschool children will cover the same amount of material as children who attend schools in probably a quarter of the time for similar reasons. So you're acquiring your information faster with e-learning, which makes you more productive. You also have far higher levels of engagement. So for example, you have greater learning participation. You have to participate and engage with the course for it to go forward. You have to press the next button for it to go forward. You have to press the stop button or the start. You have to answer a question before it goes forward. So you're actively engaged. You also have students exhibiting increased focus, which ties in with participation. And I have a funny story to explain this point. When I was the director of technology at a school, we introduced a math program, an online learning math program, and the teachers loved it. And I got a good sense that the kids were enjoying it and the teachers were getting good feedback. And my daughter was in one of the classes. And so when we were driving home one afternoon, I asked her, well, you know, how are you enjoying Larson math? Waiting for her positive response. And she said to me, well, I hate it. You know, and so my heart fell and I thought, oh dear, no, why? And so, you know, I asked her why, and she said to me, because when I zone out, it stops. And that for me was just the most amazing aha moment. I mean, she was sitting in math class, perhaps looking like she paid attention, while the teacher kept talking and talking and making the assumption she was paying attention. And here on Larson Math, as soon as her mind wandered, nothing happened on the computer. She had to refocus, you know, pull herself together, hit the next button, answer the question, and it would go forward. So from that point, good e-learning will pull you in very tightly and keep you focused. The other thing is that you get immediate feedback. So in our courses, for example, we have a pre-test, we have self-guided questions throughout the test, short ones, we have interactive exercises, and then we have a post-test at the end. But all the way through, you're doing these check-ins. Do I know this? Oops, no, I don't. Maybe I should go back and review it. Do I know this? Yes, I feel comfortable. I can go forward. So you have these higher level of engagements, which in turn lead to increased retention. So attentiveness produces better learning. There's no question about it. And the research shows that retention rates for lectures and reading material can be as low as 20%, which I think is pretty scary. But as I lecture to you now, you know, I can sit and imagine, you know, some of you are checking your email, some of you looking at your phone, some of you are thinking about what you're going to do for dinner tonight. I have no way of knowing who's truly paying attention and who's really understanding what I'm saying. And that's a problem with lectures and reading, where e-learning keeps you a little bit tighter. And they say that engaging and interactive online training can increase learner retention up to 70%. And that compared to the low of 20%, have a 70% improvement on that is pretty substantial. Some of the things to consider with e-learning, and you know, we're extremely positive about it, but we understand that there's certain restrictions. You need to have some access to technology. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a wide range of technologies, laptop, desktop, cell phone, tablet, all of those will work. You do not always need to have access to the internet, depending what you want to do. If you do need to be attached to the internet or connected to the internet, certain countries and places have connectivity issues, and that can be a problem. E-learning has lower participation rates. By that I mean the number of people who start a course and finish the course can be lower with e-learning than it can with face-to-face learning. But this data is particularly related to longer courses. So universities that are offering a 6-month or year-long online course, notice this. In the shorter courses, the 2 hours or the 4 hours, typically people start them and they finish them, and you don't see this as much. But in the longer courses you do. And finally, some people don't like the fact that there's no socialization and there's non-personalized feedback. And this can be an issue for some people, and it can be overcome. So for example, I was talking to a Kenyan cohort about distance learning, and one of the things that we decided would be a good option for them was that everybody do the course, and then they meet together on a Friday morning for an hour and discuss it, so that they could get more feedback, ask more personal questions, and have some more of that social interaction. So there's ways to overcome these, but there certainly are issues. E-learning is not right for everybody. Some people really prefer the face-to-face environment. But if you look at all the benefits of e-learning versus face-to-face, it definitely has a place in your toolkit of how to give sustainable instruction. So what I'm going to do now is show you some interactive learning examples, just to give you an idea of how e-learning has changed over the years. So this first example is a table that explains the different biosafety lab levels. You've got your 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you've got some descriptions. In a face-to-face classroom environment, perhaps somebody would read it through or talk through the different levels. What we can do in this kind of environment, in an e-learning environment, is we can take the blank table and reinforce what we've learned by building up the table together. So first we take the description level and we'd say, okay, so low level containment would be BSL 1. And moderate health risks would be here. And maximum containment would be 4, and high containment would be in level 3. And we could put these in different places, move them around, and when we've got what we want and we say submit, it will tell us, okay, you got it, let's move on to the next row. And the next row will take the pathogen type. And so we'll look at the different agents and we'll pop this in to where they belong, and we'll click submit. And I got that right too. And then we'll look at the different organisms that we have. So in a BSL 1 lab, I would be working on E. coli. BSL 2 would be an HIV. Okay, I've got my mycobacterium and my Ebola virus there. And then I've got my autoclave requirements. So once I've built this table, I can move on and get the summary of my table again. But I've interacted the table, I've read the material, I've had to do some higher order thinking skills about where does this fit to build the table. If I look at some examples from a bio-waste course. So here we have different types of waste, the color of containers and the type of containers. So I know my sharps need to be in a puncture-proof container. And I know that my chemicals need the appropriate chemical hazards symbol. And my sharps need the biohazard symbol. And I know that I need a strong leak-proof plastic bag and a bottle. So just interacting with this. We also have some visual, and I'll show you another one later on, some visual examples. So this is asking you to drag the item that needs to be discarded in the sharps container into the container. So if I try to take gloves, they won't go. But if I take the pair of scissors, it will disappear into the container. And so it's for somebody that's a visual learner, this may be good help for them. We have a number of match the word with its correct definition. This is a good way for somebody to practice their definitions and check that they have them. So I can say, you know, what's a biocide, and I'll drag that to where it belongs. And I'll look at antisepsis, and I'll drag that to where it belongs. And so a person can do this and practice. If they put it in the wrong place and they submit, they'll be told that they've got it wrong and they try again. In some exercises, we say to them, you got it wrong. This is the correct answer. Would you like to try again? So you have different options, but you also have the ability to navigate the menu down the left-hand side and try as often as you want to. This is an example of putting the items in the containers where they belong. So it wants to know what's solid waste, and it wants to know what's a sharp. And you can put your solid wastes and sharps where they belong. Then we have a PPE example where she's asking, when you're opening medical waste bags, what should you be wearing? And there's 4 items. And so you choose your items. You'd need to have a mask, and you'd need to have gloves, and you'd need to have goggles, and you'd need to have some protective clothing. And if you submit it, you got it. This is a higher order thinking exercise that's a little bit harder, and we deal with it in a different way. So let's say you're not exactly sure of the order of these. We make it in this exercise that you can't put the wrong thing in the wrong place. So I know that prions are my most resistant to inactivation. So if I try to put them anywhere, it will bounce back unless I put them in most resistant. And I know my bacterial spores are there, and I know that my lipid envelope viruses are there. So then you say, well, what's the point of, doing it if you can't get anything wrong? Well, you can do this, and you can complete all of these. And then once you've done it and you say to yourself, I really struggled with this, you can say, let me review this again. And so you simply click this button, and it will let you practice it again and again until you've got it and you know it well. Here's just another quick example from Kenya, where we were looking at the different, you've got all these acronyms, and they're really hard to know who's who and what each organization does. So this was drag the responsibilities to match the agency. So the Department of Health would do this, and CHS, which is your plants, would do this, and your Bureau of Standards would do this. We've got our veterinary services. So you can go and learn this, which is, it's not really higher order thinking skills, until you get to this next slide, which says, if you have this question, which agency would you go to? And that makes it a much harder question. So if I have this question, I would go to NEEM, I think. No. If I have a question about seeds, I would go to CHS. If I have a question about pest control, I would go to pest control. So this requires that you know your acronyms, and that you also know what question you need to ask of who. The next thing that I wanted to show you was to show you a course and to show you how substantial it can be. There's a couple of things that are worth noting here. So in our courses, we have a menu which follows in all the different chapters, and each chapter has learning outcomes, and it has quizzes and reviews and so on. But we also have the narration available for people to read if they need to do that, and then the narration that will play along the bottom. I'm going to just hit on a number of slides here just to highlight some of the things in this learning to give you a sense of what it looks like. So let's look at this slide. Okay, so I'm gonna, you can hear the narration in the background, but I'm actually gonna turn it off. And the narrator talks and tells you about how many laboratory-acquired infections there were, and the study, and then you get a little note popping in on the side. So that's in its basic form how a slide can present itself. And then, as I mentioned, throughout the presentation, there's a lot of these little self-guided questions. And the self-guided questions don't count for anything other than for you to see how much progress you're making. We don't say, oh, you got 60% on this. We consider this to be a learning experience. And while you're learning, you can make as many mistakes as you want to. In chapter 2, we have a video. So mixed in with the material, you've got the video that people can watch and learn to understand more. We have a load your cabinet exercise. So basically what we do in this exercise, we bring something in and we say, this is a pipette, where would it be? And this is a petri dish, it's still in its bag, where would it be? And this would go to the clean area. And this is a sprayer with cavicide, where would it be? So these kinds of exercises give people the opportunity to really try and practice things in a very easy way. And then the last thing that I wanted to show you, another kind of interactive exercise, but a similar thing where we're looking at the difference between a BSC and a fume hood. So what you have to do is take this and then just drop it where it belongs. Okay, recirculates filtered air, exhaust chemical vapors. And so you can see that through the course, and I'll show you just down the side so that you can see you've got your standards. We discuss HEPA filters and ULPA filters. So all the relevant things that you get in a face-to-face course you get here, but with a lot more interaction than you might expect from older kinds of e-learning courses. Okay, so to tell you a little about GBEMI. GBEMI is a subsidiary of the Frontline Healthcare Workers Safety Foundation. So the last course you saw was in Frontline colors. And Frontline was founded in 1997. GBEMI is committed to providing sustainable biosafety and biosecurity training. So Frontline did the face-to-face training. And we learned from that we could be doing it better, cost effectively. When we left a country, we weren't leaving them equipped enough to carry on by themselves. And we feel that with e-learning, we can pretty much fill their gap. And we're also an affiliate member of IFBA. This is some of the countries that we've done work in, just to give you a sense of where we've been. And the reason why we started doing e-learning was that we felt that there was no internationally accredited biosafety and public health preparedness training. There's inequalities in global healthcare training, and we wanted to try and make the playing field more level. We also felt that courses ignored location-specific information. They were not always offered in a language that was comfortable or a learner's first language, and didn't take account of customs and regulations for the different countries. And with e-learning, it's pretty easy to take a course and to change it, change the language, add customs, add regulations that are specific to any country. There's also certain countries that are difficult to travel to, and certain locations within countries that are less accessible, and e-learning overcomes this to a large degree. And then there was the cost and difficulties to sustain the face-to-face training that I mentioned before. So what we do is we maximize the technological advances, and we think that we can now deliver timely, affordable, accessible, effective, and sustainable biosafety training. And certainly that's our goal. That's what our aim is. So GBEMI is accredited by ISET, which means that our training is internationally accredited. and also means that we can offer continuing education units. So if a participant receives 70% or higher in the post-test, which they can take more than once also if they need to, they qualify for ISET certificate and CEUs. It's also the first 4 courses that we're developing: the biosafety cabinets, biorisk management, bio-waste management, and biosecurity are actually aligned with the IFBA's certification exams. So people that take the courses will have covered the material and be prepared to take the IFBA certification exams. So we think that that ties in well with IFBA's goals, and of getting people out across the world that have a high standard of training and that can take that IFBA certification. And this is pretty much what I wanted to share with you this morning. You can reach me at sloubster@globalbiorisk.org. There's our website and our phone number. And I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for a wonderful presentation. So I will open up for questions now. So as I mentioned before, if there are any questions, please type them in the chat box and I will relay them to Sue. So Sue, we actually do have a question for you. The first question: what would be advised as a good length for a single e-learning session, and how long should we have people stay at their computers?
So the whole thing with e-learning is that you can stop and start it. So it really depends on you. If somebody feels that they can work through 3 chapters and then they need to go, they can come back in their own time and finish chapters 4 and 5. So it's not that you require a specific location or a specific time. You have the flexibility to do that. In terms of how long a course should be, there's no limit. It's how much material you want to convey. So our biosafety course takes some people 2 hours and some people up to 3. Depends how slow they go through it and what they do. Our dual use research of concern course is a little bit shorter because there's just less material that needs to be covered. So I think there's no specific length, but I would encourage people to break up their learning and say you don't have to sit at your computer for 2 hours. Do an hour every morning you come in, or if it's only a 2-hour course, sure, knock it out. If you feel you can focus that long, go ahead and do that.
Okay, great. I don't see any other questions at this time, so I do have a question for you. Could you say one more time what the 4 courses are that you have developed at Global Biorisk?
So the 4 that we have so far are the care and use of biosafety cabinets, dual use research of concern, biorisk management, and bio-waste management. And these, the dual use is part of the IFBA's biosecurity course, and we'll do the biosecurity course, I think, is in our plans to develop next year.
Okay. And so you talked a little bit about making your courses in location-specific language and customs and using the regulations of individual countries or areas. So can you speak to a little bit more about how you're making that possible with your company? Are you partnering with people in country, or how are you bringing that change about?
So yes, we're partnering with people in country. So right now, the courses we're working on, we are presenting in Pakistan, and so the courses are being translated into Urdu. And there's 2 ways that we can deal with this. The first is we can actually digitize the Urdu course so people can listen to the course and watch the course in Urdu. But depending on the amount of people you have and the need, because most people may speak English. For example, in Kenya, most people speak English, but you may want the course available in Swahili too. So the other option is to have a paper copy. So all the narration and all the slides are available in supplementary material that's in a language. And then certainly in Pakistan, we're working with people from the university there, and they are evaluating the course with us and adding and changing what they need changed for their country.
Great. So we have another question from the line. So the question is, how long does it take to develop a course?
That, if we have the information from a SME, so we have the subject matter almost like in a PowerPoint with narration, it's not long for us to do. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks till we can get it to beta testing. And one of the things we're looking at is developing specific courses for specific countries. So to tell people in Kenya specifically their biosafety policies. They'll provide the subject matter experts, they'll give us all the material, we'll translate that into a course for them. So there's courses that we'll design, but we also will design courses for people in the area of biosafety if they need that.
Great. Okay, there's just a comment from the line saying that they were looking to expand their biorisk management training within the MENA region. So I hope that you connect with Sue. Any other questions, please type them into the chat line. And Sue, I have another question for you. So you talked a little bit about courses in areas that maybe have constraints as far as electricity or access to the internet. So right now, the courses that you're providing, are they app-based courses? Are they downloadable courses, or that you do require internet?
So we can provide the course in a number of different ways. There is an app. So we use Articulate as our learning management system, and Articulate has an app. So you can download the courses offline and into their library, and then you can use them completely offline. But we can also provide the courses on a CD or DVD, and we can provide them on a USB drive in addition. So there is, and it's not a complication, a difference. If you do the courses online, we can't track them for ISET accreditation. So if you want the accreditation and the CEUs, then you need to be attached to the internet for that. But if you want your staff or your community just to learn the material, at the end it will say, you know, you got 60% or 70%, and it will say your name, and we can send you a certificate of participation, but it's not an ISET certificate or a certificate of completion we can send you. But in a number of instances, like if you quickly want to train somebody, there's a pandemic, and you quickly want to train a group of people, you know, you can take 20 or 30 tablets and go and hit an area very quickly without needing any connection to the internet if that ISET CEU is not an important criteria.
Great. So we have another question from the chat box. The question is, what type of technical support is available for the course participants?
So it's an interesting question that for Pakistan, we have people on the ground that are providing the first line of technical support. So we beta tested with people from pretty much across the world. We've had, you know, some people from Africa, some people from the Philippines, all over, have tested the course without a problem. But we expect there will be some problems. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. You need a password if you log in online, and it will automatically send you your password. But if you have a computer problem, your first line would be to go to someone. If it's something that you want us to help you with, we'd be happy to do that. but we have not set up a strong infrastructure for doing that yet.
Okay, so there's another question asking, have you worked with the Global Health Security Agenda Action Package group at all?
So, a little in answer to that. We only just started working with them. So we started working, when I came back from Kenya, I got onto Ambassador Jenkins' email list and we learned about them. So that was just after August. And so we've engaged with them and with NextGen.
Great. Okay, any other questions from the chat box? Please type them in.
So while you're waiting for a question, I want to just share with you, because I was really pleased to get this morning. One of our beta testers in Africa, he'd been testing the biosafety course. He sent this to me this morning, and it just said, I greatly benefited from the course and learned many new aspects that I didn't know of previously. I feel it is very well designed course and very comprehensive. I would recommend this course for training. What I liked most is the diversity of the course material. I enjoyed the switch between notes, audio, videos, and the provision of links. Trainees have different levels of understanding, and if the training materials are presented in different forms, it helps in understanding and retention. Overall, the course was well thought of and designed. So that was neat to get. We got a lot of really good feedback from that, and everything that we've heard from our testers seems to be that it's something that they appreciate and are learning a lot from.
Okay, we have another question on the line, and it says, what is the difference between Min Genda and PH? I'm assuming public health.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I think you're probably better qualified to answer that than me.
I would need just a little bit more framework in the public health portion of the question. The previous question was really detailing in, I guess, from Sue's perspective, in supporting the Global Health Security Agenda action packages, which are action packages put forward in support of secure from infectious diseases, but I'm not exactly sure about the public health component of that question. So I said, if you're able to just expand on your question a little bit more, I'm happy to answer if possible. So Sue, as you're moving forward, I know you said you're working in Pakistan now. Are there other countries that you are currently that are piloting the product, or they're moving forward with actually completing the programs?
So we really would like to distribute to other countries, and our next step, we think, is to look to translate the programs into languages like Arabic, French, Hindi. So that's where people have expressed interest, and that's really the next step. One of our stumbling blocks, and I guess this is the same for everybody else, is funding. So it's helpful to us to have grants or help with funding, because even if we charge a smallish amount to sell these to individuals, it's not enough to cover development costs. But if we can get grants to cover the development, to cover the translation costs, then we can offer this to anybody and to everybody, and then to tie in with GHSA, we can help really make the world a safer place.
Absolutely. So there's another question. Do the courses provide reference materials?
Yes. Yes. So on the side of the course, if you go and have a look, there's a list that says references, and there are reference materials there.
Great.
In some of our courses, we also have glossaries that help.
Awesome. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'll give it just a couple more seconds just in case someone is typing.
Okay, I just want to say one more thing, that the course development is also fluid. So the fact that we finish the course, if anything changes or, you know, there's a new development, it's really easy for us to change and update course material. So if, for example, even in the reference section, if you particularly want something listed in the references for a class you teach, or and it's not there, it's something that's very easy for us to add and change. These are not fixed in stone once they're complete.
Okay, so are you currently updating on a schedule, or do you just update as you receive information and it's validated?
It's really easy enough to update as we receive it.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, I don't see any more questions at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and close out. Sue, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was a great conversation, learning about e-learning and the things that you're doing to move forward biosecurity and biosafety in the field. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.